Hello and welcome back to my channel, and first of all I wish you all a happy Christmas. I hope you're enjoying this holiday season and it's a relaxing time for you. I saw an interesting article in The Guardian online and one of the reporters was talking about how the true gift of Christmas is not Christmas Day, but it's actually Boxing Day to New Year's Day, because everyone knows that not much work is being done. There's not so much responsibility to get projects in and get work done, and things are generally calmer at home as well. And that's the true gift, Boxing Day to New Year's Day. And this time for me, I was just thinking I wanted to talk to you about two things. First thing, 2023 for Etsy, and the second thing, 2023 for Etsy sellers, and how I feel about the two sides, the Etsy side and the seller side, and what I've noticed being in a very privileged position, which is having access to information that you guys don't get access to. So hundreds and hundreds of Etsy sellers' data, performance, what's going on in the marketplace. This is information that, Etsy holds everything, but someone like me gets a decent chunk of almost inside information. So it gives me a position of privilege to be able to talk to you guys, which is why sometimes I say things that people, they don't agree with and they don't like, and they think I'm crazy or trying to lie to people, things like that. But it's coming from a position of having access to information that no one has access to. So the first thing is Etsy, and this year 2023, I think we can all agree, has been a huge wake-up call for Etsy. A big wake-up call in terms of the world's media shining a light on Etsy and highlighting really, really bad actors, bad business practices going on the platform, counterfeit goods, copyright goods, trademark infringement. The list goes on and on. I did a video about it recently when Etsy fired 11% of their staff. The brutal reality is that 2024 for Etsy is going to continue the way 2023 went through, which is really stagnant sales performance, really stagnant performance as a whole. Etsy knows it's got to clean up its act, but doesn't seem to be able to do it in the right way. So I liken the suspending of stores. They're using a sledgehammer to hit a fly. So they're just suspending everybody because they know they've got to do something and they don't have the staff to take care of it manually, which causes me a bit of a problem because Amazon, I signed up with Amazon last year or the year before, and they took me through a video interview. That video interview was 10 minutes, but they asked me pertinent, probing questions before allowing me onto the platform. That's a surefire way to knock out most bad actors, most bad players that want to basically wreck Etsy and turn it away from what the highlights of Etsy are, which is a place to get unique handmade products and things that are different to everywhere else. So next year, the marketplace is going to be the same in terms of performance. It's going to be stodgy, attritional, no fanfare, no fireworks. Don't expect miracles next year. It's not going to happen. It's going to be a very difficult selling year next year. Etsy know this. Their figures are flat. Next year's projections aren't looking great. So that's the first thing. So Etsy needs to understand its sellers are its absolute asset. They're gold. Treat the sellers well, communicate with them, and clean up the marketplace. They have to spend money to clean up the marketplace and communicate with sellers. I just think that's absolutely imperative, because next year I think Shopify are going to come through their marketplace where they're going to support sellers with their brand so that they can get traffic in. I think it's called Shopify Shop. That's going to be competition for Etsy. Michaels as well is coming through. Etsy needs to really up their game next year. So that's my thoughts on Etsy for this year and next year. Now for sellers. So remember, when I talk to my clients, they're Etsy sellers like you, and I talk to hundreds and hundreds of them. So I've spoken to multiple hundreds of sellers this year, and The overriding thing that I've learned this year, and I want to share with you, is the disconnect between what Etsy sellers think is okay to succeed on the platform and the reality of actually what you need to do to succeed on the platform. They're far, far apart. And a huge problem or part of this is print on demand. So I'll give you a perfect example of what I mean by this. So droves and droves of sellers are doing print on demand on Etsy. I would say 60% of the clients, maybe more, that I talk to are print on demand. And they're all putting up sort of low to medium effort stores, not focusing on niches properly, not focusing on who they're selling to and what the message of their store is. And when it gets to talking to them, I say, you know, it's not enough anymore just to have mock-ups from Printify or Printful, things like that. Once you start building and growing the business, you need to buy your products, right? You need to buy your products, photograph them, video them yourself, put value into your store. So POD is not this sort of low revenue investment and everything's going to be fine and someone else is going to ship all the products for you and Etsy's going to bring the customers and you're going to make loads of sales. That's just fantasy. So Etsy sellers, POD and non-POD. So don't forget, I deal with tons of sellers that sell physical products, you know, jewelry, home decor, all sorts of things, you know. And I notice it on that side as well. The mindset of the sellers is far below the mindset needed to succeed. Far below in terms of the effort they believe they need to put into the store, the amount of inventory they need, the quality of photography and video, far below the level needed. So when I talk to Etsy sellers, it's like a bucket of cold water over their heads. I've done hundreds of consultations this year with Etsy sellers, and it's a bucket of cold water over their head. They just sit there and say, you know, I didn't realize, I didn't know what the level of work needed. Now, in fairness to the sellers, they wouldn't know. That's why they're talking to me. And then when I highlight photography, and I'm going to be doing a photography video in depth on how to do good product photography next year. Etsy sellers have no idea. And when I talk about photography and the level needed and show them examples of good photography, they just want to back out of the door and say, no, I'm not doing this. It's so difficult. Photography can take weeks or months to resolve and get right. And from when you first photograph to when you get the final photographic product that's good enough, you go through many versions of that to get there. Photography is bloody hard work. It's difficult for most sellers, not all, most. So getting sellers to understand the level of effort needed. There's no such thing as passive. You know, people, I'm going to be talking about Etsy YouTubers next year and starting to highlight more of this awful advice. There's no such thing as passive. There's no such thing as low effort or mid effort. It's all effort to make money on Etsy. And so I'm dragging my clients up to the level, not dragging, but sort of pulling them up to the level needed so that they can have a good chance of selling. You know, it's my job to guide and get people up to that level. And even then, sellers don't succeed. This is another thing. Not every seller that I work with succeeds. Plenty fail. They fail because they don't realize the level of work and sustained effort needed. It's months and months to get going, you know, to get the store up and running, to get some sales under your belt. Some sellers can't do it because of this hustle culture, because of this idea I'm going to fit an Etsy store into my working week. Mostly that doesn't work. Mostly that simply doesn't work. You need time and energy and consistency over several months. Sure, there's some people out there that can hit something, maybe a digital store, digital supplies, or POD, they have a good niche and sub-niche, and they can do it in 2 hours a day. Mostly, no. It's 3, 4, 5 hours a day. You need time and investment. It's a business, just like any other business, you know. You've got to put time into it. Get into my comments. Tell me what you're looking to do next year. What is your focus? What are you planning to do? Any questions, as always, get into my comments and tell me what your questions are. And of course, you know I answer every single one. And before I go, remember, It's not about SEO. See you in 2024.